Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of FLITE CHAT. My name is Ray. Thank you so much for joining me for listener feedback on this particular show. It's been a very tumultuous and incredibly painful weekend for a lot of people, especially in the United States. And basically, any humans, if you're a human being out there, it has been a very difficult 24 to 48 hours. And it's been a difficult year. I mean, really, last year and now almost a full month, a year and a full month, truthfully, for a number of reasons. And, it's not political. At the end of the day, people want to argue, oh, it's just a difference over politics. No, it's moral imperative. It is. There's some really bad shit going on right now in the United States. Some really morally heinous, disgusting, horrible shit happening right now in the United States. And yesterday I was on Threads doing what I really shouldn't be doing, which is doom scrolling. But that's something that, it's so common now, especially for people who have a heart, people who are even remotely human, to just doom scroll and search for the hope, or also, to make certain that they don't miss the outrage, if you will, and so many good people out there are outraged. I saw somebody, Jessica Buman, runs an account called Art by Jess Buman, who apparently is in Minneapolis. It says, painting, momming, and connecting women in the Twin Cities to build skills together. And she asked the question yesterday. She said, does art really matter right now? This is a serious question. And she followed that up with another post that said, I felt like my energy while coming from St. Paul to Minneapolis today, being a puddle of anxiety and grief, was so unhelpful. I am better making art in solitude, but it truly does feel less important and safer, less brave, just processing this today. And a lot of people, I mean, she had almost 3,000 replies, including my reply, to answer her question, does art really matter right now? My answer to her was yes, because they want to break us mentally and physically. The moment we cease our art is the moment they win, and we'll never get it back. Art is what helps keeps our sanity while the world batters us with insanity. And I think that when we've seen certain celebrities now start to speak out, like Natalie Portman spoke out yesterday at an event and was wearing, her Ice Out pin, and definitely is very outspoken now publicly, one of the few celebrities that have been brave enough to do so. And also, Edward Norton even made a comment about it. It was in some video, said we're here talking about movies, while an illegal army is, laying waste or taking attack. I'm paraphrasing, basically causing violence and whatnot. It's awful, and it's not political, right? I don't really give a shit if people disagree with this or not. If you disagree with this, you're a horrible person. You are an inhuman piece of filth. Truthfully, there's no argument with respect to that. And I'm not above talking politics and whatnot, and this might be a weird way to start the feedback portion of the show, but I felt like I had to say it because that's why I'm still doing the show. That's why things are still happening. And this is a difficult thing to, hey, let's talk about movies, TV, and other sort of media while families are being ripped from their homes and while nurses and, regular good people, mothers and fathers are being killed, by an illegal army. Yeah, no, it puts things in perspective. Unfortunately, we all see it. We all know it. And if you're a human being that actually gives a shit about other human beings and about, wanting humanity to progress, then this is awful. This is horrible. And there's no excuses for it whatsoever. You want to argue rule of law, laws are illegal. Like what is happening right now is illegal. There's no question about it. And it's against the Constitution. It's against, human rights. It's against due process. There's so many things wrong with what is happening right now. And if you don't believe that, if you disagree with that, stop listening to my show. Stop listening to my show. Stop following me on social media. Do not send any emails in. Do not respond to me. You will be met with silence because I only deal with human beings. I only deal with people who actually have a heart for other humanity and actually see the heinousness in what is happening. There is no justification whatsoever. There's nothing subjective about this. This is objectively horrible. This is objectively disgusting. There's factual, when people are dying, when families are being ripped apart, when no due process, when no justice is being offered, any of these people, that is objectively terrible. There is no room for interpretation on that whatsoever, unless you're a racist, unless you're a bigot, unless you're a misogynist, unless you're a terrible person that wishes to inflict pain and fear upon the rest of the planet. That's the only way that you could even remotely offer any type of argument on this. So yeah, won't be hearing any of that. No, not at all. So a lot of people have been posting that, hey, they don't care if they lose followers over it. I don't either. I don't think anybody that stupid and disgusting is listening to my show anyway, or paying attention to what I say. But in the event that you are, get the out. Leave. Seriously, stop listening to my shit. You are not welcome. You are not allowed to listen to any of my shit. You are no longer a human being at this point. You probably never were, since you're, defending any of this horrific nonsense. And if that's what your argument is going to be, you don't deserve to have a voice. You don't deserve to be sharing the same air as the rest of us that are just trying to live our lives. They're just trying to be regular human beings and, not be horrible, disgusting pieces of filth. So, yeah, it's a weird, somber way to start the show, but I truthfully don't think that I could go through with this episode without saying something and without being very upfront and blunt about it. And I know most of you agree. I know just about anybody listening to this agrees with what I'm saying, and I don't anticipate losing a ton of followers over this. Not like I have a ton of followers in the first place. I have a very niche audience that, you guys have listened to me over the last number of years, and you know where I stand, and you stand in the same place. So we're good, but just wanted to throw that out there so that I can move forward and provide the art and the conversation about movies, TV, and other assorted media so that we can retain our sanity, that is, while all the world around us is burning and crashing and destroying itself. And this too shall pass. It will not be forever. This horrible totalitarian regime will be defeated and will not see the light of day for that much longer. And it is unfortunate that there will be more collateral damage as a result of it before it's all said and done. But history tells us that these types of people, these regimes do not last. They cannibalize themselves. They eat each other and give way to reason and logic and right more often than not. So that's something to perhaps, have some confidence in, but, even more so, like I say at the end of every show, take care, stay safe out there. I mean that today more than ever. And I'll say it again, I'll reiterate it again at the end of this recording. But tell you what, let's dive into the discussions at hand, because there's a decent amount to talk about outside of the serious shit. So let's go ahead and put a pin in this and get on to the feedback of this particular week. John Rossler, of course, leads us off, and he's got another gaggle of emails. Well, it looks like he's got 3 or 4, but let's see if some of them are shorter than others. So he had this first one he sent on the 20th called Flight. He calls it Flight Chat Optional. Like some emails he'll send, it's like, okay, you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to. This comes from the DCU, the Direct. Oh, here we go, the Direct. For people who don't know what the Direct is, it is a Scooper Madness rag. There's one for the MCU, there's one for the DCU, and it's a website that was started a number of years ago. I forget who started it, and I don't remember exactly who. Like there are a couple of like I'm looking at the names here, like Kevin Grodsky. I don't know. He's Jack McBrien, Chris Snellger. I like that. There's a name. One of the guys, one of the Scooper Madness people, Sam Hargrave. Well, that's a name that seems a little familiar. There's some people, some Scooper Madness individuals that were involved. I guess the Grodsky started MCU Direct, and now a team of passionate young journalists and content creators from across the globe. Yeah, well, they're Scooper Madness. They're absolutely part of Scooper Madness. And so this post apparently comes from their Facebook page. It says Stranger Things star Dacker, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Dacker Montgomery, says that Zack Snyder is one of his favorite comic book movie directors. Quote, Zack Snyder is one of my favorites to do amazing stuff with the superhero genre. There are plenty of people that feel that way. There are plenty of people out there that are fans of Zack Snyder's work in the DCEU. There's no question about it. And I've said that the hatred for his content, the hatred for his movies, and his idea of the DC universe and Justice League and whatnot, it's overhated. The idea that so many people, the idea that it was massively polarizing, it all was polarizing, but way less people hate it than the actual haters and toxic pieces of shit want us to believe is the case. So this doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me at all. And I also think that, pursuant to something that we saw when hashtag Restore the Snyderverse was actually started after Zack Snyder's Justice League was released, I think there were a lot of people that after seeing that version of Justice League, whether it changed their opinion of, Man of Steel and BVS or not, it gave them a better understanding of the direction those movies are taking, and that's, contributes to why I say, if Justice League had never happened, and if we found ourselves in a position where a theatrical version of Justice League had been released, then it would be a very different story. And I do believe that the audiences, the general audience out there, would have had an opportunity to process his vision and go, oh, okay, now I get it. So even if they were divided or mixed on BVS, they would have seen the actual Justice League as intended, even in 2 hour, 2.5 hour form, and they would have gone, oh, okay. And then at that point, they will at least be like, well, all right, that this is different. I feel like 5 movies in, because that's what it would have been. It would have been 5 movies into the MCU, or the DCU, rather, pardon me. Would have been 5 movies into the DCU. They would have understood the DCEU's place as, okay, this isn't the MCU. This is different. This is a bit more adult. This is a bit darker, if you will. This is a bit more deconstructed. This is a bit more closer to like, what if these superheroes existed in our reality? Doesn't have quite the same magical family quality as the MCU does. And I think it would have gained a foothold. I do. BVS made money. Man of Steel made money. Regardless of what the haters want to tell you, regardless of what they want everybody to believe, those movies made money. And Zack Snyder's Justice League, I firmly believe, would have made money had it been released properly, even in truncated form, and then, we get the Ultimate Edition or whatnot later on Blu-ray. Absolutely. So this doesn't surprise me one bit. Those movies, Zack Snyder's films, the perception that they are hated so much is very overblown, extremely. And, it really just comes from the toxicity of social media and whatnot with respect to that. But that was his optional email that he sent at first. So let's get to, this is a bigger one. Oh yeah, he's got quite a bit here. Got some questions and whatnot. This one's called Hawaii Thus Far and More from John Rossler. He says overall, and he sent this on Wednesday, by the way, Wednesday the 21st. He said overall, I'd say it's been an 8 out of 10 trip. Sunday highs, managed to make it to the airport on time. Managed to make it to the airport okay, I made it on time, is what he actually said. I caught some shiny Grookey, a monkey grass Pokemon while at my stopover at Honolulu. I forgot it was Pokemon Go Community Day, a monthly event dedicated to a specific Pokemon for 3 hours. All right, yeah, I missed the boat on that one, but I know Phil and a number of others that play Pokemon will definitely understand where you're coming from on that one, John. Lowe's. He says, I almost missed my flight as I traveled to the wrong gate and couldn't find my ticket to Hilo. It was a miracle that I still managed to find an aisle seat because Ray, and there's a bunch of emojis here, skeleton, uh, tombstone, fire, devil. He says, if hell is a real place, it's spending an eternity in the middle seat of a plane. Well, I sat in the middle seat on our flight to San Francisco, flight to and from San Francisco. And you know what? All right, I'll tell you what. I can sort of relate to that. Not nearly as long as a flight to Hawaii. I understand that. But half, right? Like 4, almost 5 hours, right? And I will tell you that, Shonda was to the left of me. She had the window seat. And, random dude, for one random dude on the way there, one random dude on the way back. And the way there, the random dude that was sitting to me on the right was cool because he was flirting with a girl that was like over, or talking to a girl that was like a seat over, and he kept getting up, right? Like to go to the bathroom or whatever and stuff, right? So the thing is, I'm 6'2", and I have like longer legs. So yeah, sitting in economy is hell, and really messed up my knees. Yeah, and not wasn't a good thing for my knees. So it was good for me to get up and walk around. And he got out of his seat multiple times and understood, and was like, all right. Like, he was very copacetic. Like, didn't have any issues. I didn't have any issues with the guy on the way back, like home either. I just didn't. There was no conversation. He didn't flirt nearly as much with other people or talk nearly as much with other people, and like, so he wasn't like getting up as much, but he still did. He still got up here and there to go to the bathroom and walk around and whatnot. So I was okay for 4 hours. My knees were killer. Like sitting in that position, scrunched up with no leg room. in economy, yeah. If I had an extra $1,500 to $2,000, I could pay for first class. But you know how it goes with respect to something like that. So yeah, I hear you a little bit on that. You definitely don't want to spend 8 hours in a position like that for sure. He says, but thankfully the flight from Honolulu to Big Island wasn't long. Managed to get my rental car and headed to my dad's friend's property. I don't know if Michigan ever had a long drugs, but for any younglings listening, a long time ago before CVS, it was called Long's Drugstore. Except Hawaii, that's why, right? In Hawaii, it is still called Long's. Okay. I met him at the store and followed him to his place, which is in the boonies and not the best service out here, but it was fine. I felt bad for the guy who had to keep coming with me to unlock the gate so I can leave, but he didn't mind. Mr. Gates is his name, and no, it's not a pun on him opening the gates. That's apparently his real name. Um, did he change his name to that? I don't know. That's cool. That's a intriguing coincidence. Monday highs. Oh, we're going day by day here. So on Monday, he said he still had some jet lag. Woke up at 6 a.m. Still been operating on West Coast time. Left around 9:30. Tested out doing a DoorDash delivery on the island. You were working? You were doing a DoorDash, or no? You had one come to you, or no? You said you did do a DoorDash. After dropping off the delivery, you checked the Kahlua coastline. It was so nice seeing houses off the shoreline. You then traveled to Akaki Falls. I hope I pronounced that right. A trail that led to one of the biggest waterfalls in the world. It was trippy. He says I did have fun getting lost and catching Pokemon exclusive to the region. The views I saw of the ocean were beautiful. But the lows on that day, he says I was really looking forward to the Hawaiian exclusive McTerry chicken sandwich, but found out, like the McRib and Shamrock Shake, it was seasonal, so I was very disappointed. Hawaiian McDonald's has seasonal sandwiches? Interesting. He says, but I did get a 20-piece McNugget in the big box. I don't know if Michigan does this, but in the East Coast and Hawaii, all 20 pieces are in a big rectangular box. California used to do this, he says, but stopped years ago. Instead, they only come in two separate 10-piece McNugget boxes, although in some regions here they have the McNuggets and fries of all sizes in paper bags. Imagine if the small white paper for the fries had different sizes. Well, they don't do, at least here in Michigan, I don't even think they do. Maybe if it's real small, it's a small white paper. But it really, every time I've ordered fries in the last several years, it's been the red, cardboard, the red container in that regard. I don't know. Um, and the McNugget boxes, the only thing I'll say about McNugget boxes is there's no room to put the sauce. I wish there was. Because if I'm eating in the car, which does happen, if I'm eating McNuggets in the car, then I have to really do I gotta lean it up against the box and lean it up against the front seat and be like, okay, here's hoping that nothing slides or goes out of the way or whatnot. So, yeah, wish they had a spot to put the damn sauce, which I prefer barbecue. Sweet and sour is okay. Not really a fan of buffalo. That's too hot. He says, when I returned from my day trip, I tried to meet Mr. Gates at the Longs again, but because of the bad reception, I had to wait 30 minutes. I thought I'd pass time by going into the store for a bit. So that was Monday. Tuesday highs, he decided to drive to the volcano, but he only had 3 hours to do so because he had to return a rental car. Got some good shots of the mountains and fields. As far as the volcano itself, well, that goes into the lows. He says, I couldn't see it, and the line to get into the volcano was busy. I figured on a school day and a not so busy travel week, I'd have easier time accessing a volcano, but nope. So I had to find a hiking trail, he says, in hopes to see it from a distance. Well, that's too bad. I mean, volcanoes, I'm 50-50 on that. On the one hand, I'm like, wow, this would be cool to see. On the other hand, it'd be just my luck. It would erupt. And, it would turn into like Dante's Peak or something. It's like, no, don't want to do that. Not at all. So, yeah, a little 50-50 with respect to wanting to visit a volcano. But he said overall, the rest of the day, I went downtown Hilo near the airport, tried some Japanese food, which tasted better than they made them in the continental states, in my opinion. I'll believe that because they're in the Pacific Ocean. You're closer to the source. I completely believe that. Then later that night, he says, me, Mr. G, and a neighbor friend played music together for like 2 hours. As of the time of him writing this, he said, today is Wednesday and I'm here today and tomorrow, and we'll make a part 2 of my trip when I get home on Friday. So he didn't quite send a part 2 email, like labeled a part 2, but he did have some Hawaii thoughts in his other emails. So let me skip ahead here a little bit. We'll come back to his flight chat questions that he had in this first one. But in this next email, he said he was still in Hawaii and did some laundry in the village, checked out a museum, but didn't have any money to thoroughly check out the tour. Walked 20 minutes to Domino's Pizza as no Lyft, Uber, or taxi was available to pick him up. and didn't want to bother Mr. Gates, but you know what? He says, I worked up an appetite and didn't have to spend money to get there, so hey, it worked out. Honestly, I should go up to rural areas of land with shoddy internet more often, he says. When I caught up on social media, once I was in the town of Pahoa and saw people blasting Christina Hodson for being the screenwriter for Brave and the Bold, it made me want to go back up that hill. Seriously, glad I was out of the loop the last few days. Now I know what being a part of the general audience again feels like. Let's put a pin in the Christina Hodson thing because he has some thoughts with respect to that I'll talk about here shortly, getting to the rest of his email. But as far as finishing up his trip with respect to Hawaii, he said overall, and this is going to his 30 email that he sent, which was a bit longer. He says his overall final thoughts on his Hawaii trip was 8 out of 10. He says, my final day, I got a ride to the lodge near the airport and stopped by the closest beach, went in for a little dip, saw some black and white minnows and tiny hermit crabs. It was my second time overall traveling to the Aloha State. Interestingly enough, the last trip was also on the Big Hawaii Island. It was the year 2000 when I was 10, which I had fond memories of. Never got to really experience any other thing on the other islands. It seems they all have outdoor air parks. Have you ever been to Hawaii? No. No, I have not. I have never been to Hawaii. Would I ever go to Hawaii? Perhaps. I'd think about it. Long flight, right? Really long flight for sure. But yeah, no, I have never been to Hawaii. In fact, San Francisco, the trip I just took back in September for my sister's wedding, furthest west I've ever been, closest to the Pacific Ocean I've ever been in life. So yeah, that's call it bucket list or whatever. Yeah, have not been quite that far into the Pacific Ocean just yet, but not against it, not against the idea. So we'll see what happens. All right, so let's circle back to his first email, Hawaii thus far and more, and talk about his flight chat questions that he had on that particular day because he's got a few here. And his first question here was about the link that he sent with respect to the Stranger Things actor, who apparently was also the 2017 Red Ranger in the Power Rangers movie I still haven't watched, said he's a Snyder fan. And he's like, that's pretty cool, right? I had actually rewatched the 2017 film a couple of months ago, he says, as I had gotten Tammy back into Power Rangers thanks to my cosplay idea. She never saw it before. She was mind blown how radically different it was from the camp that was the 90s show. Yeah, I still need to see it. It is cool that he's a Snyder fan. Like I said, the hatred for Snyder's DC films is massively overblown. I guarantee not nearly as much of the general audience hated it as much as the gatekeepers and the piss ants on social media and whatnot. But no, that is cool. I do need to see that Power Rangers movie. It's on the list for sure. Number two, he says, it's a shame that Louis Linkara Lovehog has been very anti-Snyderverse, because if that wasn't a deal breaker for you, then I could easily see you two being friends in regards to Star Trek. He's a massive Power Rangers, Pokemon, and Star Trek fan. He also enjoys DC more than Marvel, but he seems to gatekeep a lot. You guys seem pretty in lockstep with Star Trek, though. If he ever stopped hating on Snyder's DCEU work, I don't know if he saw Zack Snyder's Justice League, although he did say he found Justice League had elements he liked, would you consider watching his work? Who is Louis Linkara Lovehog? I don't know. I'm going to Google this name because I have no idea who this is. I've heard the word Linkara before. Louis J. Lovehog, an author, internet reviewer from Minnesota, best known as Linkara, host of the Atop the Fourth Wall, as well as the host of History of Power Rangers and overview of the Power Rangers franchise. So, what are his thoughts with respect to the Snyderverse and whatnot? Because you're saying he's very anti-Snyderverse, but he's will you say that our thoughts are in lockstep with respect to Star Trek? That doesn't vibe. That does not compute. That dog don't hunt. And here's why I say that, John, because I feel like if he is open-minded about Star Trek, but closed-minded about Star Wars or about DC and like the DC comic stuff and his anti-Snyderverse, that's hypocritical, really hypocritical in my opinion. I guess according to this, says he's best known in the online world as that annoying guy in the hat who makes fun of bad comic books. Yes, yeah, gatekeeping is a no-no, and I don't just restrict it to different franchises, John. If you're gatekeeping one thing, then I want nothing to do with you whatsoever. So no, I would not consider. Or what was your question? Would you consider if you ever stopped hating on Snyder's DCEU work? Would you consider watching his work? The reason why would he stop gatekeeping Snyder's work. To me, and I'd have to know exactly what his thoughts are on Star Trek. I mean, because I'm as open minded on Star Trek as I am on DC stuff. So that's why I don't quite get why our views are in lockstep with respect to Star Trek, but not with DC, because my open mindedness extends across both of those. Like, I don't just turn it on for one franchise and off for another. I have it on for all franchises. And so if that's not how he operates, then no, I would not consider watching his work. I really wouldn't. He says, I remember a time when you wrote a piece called The Problem Is You, when trying to explain how we as fans are responsible for our own emotions. I shared your blog with him. Oh, here we go. And his take was, basically, this sounds like stop saying things suck. Which, no, if something looks crap to me, I'm going to express my opinion. People are allowed to enjoy things, but I'm free to express what I consider valid criticism, and the DCU up to this point has been crap. John says, although I did point out Wonder Woman, and he said that was pretty darn good. He said he hated Snyder's DCEU films, and I don't know even if he ever saw Studio Squad, but I suggested that hate is a strong word, maybe dislike would sound better, and he was all, nope, I hate them, absolutely despise them, especially Man of Steel. Rebooting with a Flashpoint movie makes the most sense. This was back in 2018, I believe. John, I see no redeeming value in dealing with this piece of shit. He seems like a very piece of shit individual, based on everything that you've described. He says, I know he did enjoy Superman and seems to enjoy the DCU thus far. If he can stop being miserable about Snyder not doing what he wanted him to do, I could easily see you guys getting along. He lives in Minnesota. That's right next to Michigan. I know you had to stop. I know you said you had to stop listening to a Star Trek podcast because they threw shade at BVS. I didn't have to stop listening to it, John. I decided to stop listening to it because they made a comment about Batman v Superman, and I'm like, yeah, I don't need to hear that shit anymore. I also had just started podcasting with Squadcast Media right after that, to be honest with you. He says, I rarely disagree with. The only other thing I disagreed with him on was he thought Ghostbusters 2 was better than the first film, and I thought, subjectively speaking, that's a pretty hot take. Him and his brother also thought Ghostbusters 2016 was better than BVS and Man of Steel. Shake my head. This guy sounds like an asshole, John. I see absolutely no redeeming value whatsoever to talk to this guy, and especially if he's going to misinterpret what I wrote, because he says basically this sounds like stop saying things suck. No, it means you're the reason they suck. You're the reason that you think they suck, right? They don't objectively. This is somebody that, just the way that you describe him, John, he sounds like somebody that doesn't know what it's all subjective means. And I have no patience for that, for people like that whatsoever. I really don't. The idea is taking accountability and responsibility for your own emotions. You're choosing to dislike a film. You're choosing to dislike a franchise. You're choosing to dislike a comic book or whatever. That is your choice. Own it. Be an adult. Look into the camera and say, I don't like this movie. I don't like this writer. I don't like this director. And own that you were choosing not to like it. Stop putting the responsibility of that on the director, the studio, or the writer. It's not their fault whatsoever. You have chosen to be a dick about it. Whoever this person is, this Linkara. No, absolutely not. There's nothing about him. Sorry, John. There's nothing about him. No, you can't flip a switch with it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, if he just stopped hating on Snyder. Well, no, but he does hate on Snyder. And there is no changing his mind. Like, even if he were trying to fake it, even if he decided to change his mind, why? Like, what reason do I have to listen to him? And whatever closed-minded nature he has with respect to DC, I mean, why doesn't he feel the same way about Star Trek? He sounds like a giant hypocrite to me, John. Absolutely not. No, I have no interest whatsoever. No interest whatsoever. He sounds like a shit human being. He really does. He sounds like a very shit human being. And no, I'm not interested in hearing any of his closed-mindedness. So sorry to burst your bubble on that, but I don't care how much he likes Star Trek. I don't care how much his views align with mine. And hopefully, he's a more open-minded individual than he, purports to be based on your interactions with him. And I don't wish him any ill will in Minnesota unless he's supporting the horrible things that are happening out there. But, it doesn't sound like anybody that I need to waste my time with whatsoever, especially if he thinks that saying, taking accountability for your own emotions when you say something sucks or even when you like something is saying that stop saying things suck. No, say that they suck all you want, but stop blaming other people for why they suck. It's your fault. You're choosing to decide that they suck. There's no objective measurement for sucking, and that's probably where he and I would absolutely butt heads. Because I'm sure he believes that there's objective reasons as to why this movie sucks or why that show sucks, and he's wrong. He's like completely wrong. Like that there's no like if, ands, or buts on that one. There is subjective reasoning, there's opinion, there's subjective appraisal, and then there's objective fact. The only objective fact with respect to disliking a movie is that you dislike the movie. It is not objectively good, it is not objectively bad, because there is no objective measurement for good or bad with any of these films. All measurements of good or bad with respect to any films and television and comics that we watch and read is all subjective. All of it. It's all based on opinion. Okay, and yes, they teach you that in school. Yes, they teach you that in film classes. Yeah, there's technical aspects to making a movie and to making productions, but even a lot of those tend to be broken by filmmakers at times in that regard. So, you know what? People that do not understand or accept it's all subjective are not people I need to bother with whatsoever. So, sorry, John, absolutely not. I don't give a shit what he thinks about Star Trek. I have absolutely no interest in talking to that person whatsoever. So, nope, I will not lose a wink of sleep not thinking about Linkara in that regard. But here, that was the end of the Hawaii Thus Far and More email. Let's get to the breaking news, or is it? Because this was in the middle, like I mentioned before, he said he got caught up on social media when he was out in Hawaii and saw people blasting Christina Hodson for being the screenwriter for Brave and the Bold. And he says, seriously, people are mad about this. Why? People liked Bumblebee. People liked Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. The Flash at worst was divisive, but all three films were fresh on the Hell site, which isn't saying much other than she's 3-0 for blockbuster films in that regard. Now, that is objectively true. That is an objective fact. See the difference? Right? Whether Bumblebee, Birds of Prey, and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn or The Flash are good or not, that's subjective. But what is objective is that all three of those movies have fresh ratings on the Hell site Rotten Tomatoes for her. That is true. Bumblebee is certified fresh. Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn is fresh. The Flash is fresh. They're all freshly rated. That is true. That is objectively true in that regard. Objective fact. He says, whatever the reason Batgirl got canned, I don't know. If it was the writing that was the problem, I think the continuity of the costumes, the fact that it was made with the intent of putting it on HBO Max, etc. I think Hodson did what she could do, given the aimless direction of one Walter Hamada. Yeah, there's no way that Christina Hodson's script had anything to do. If that was the case, they wouldn't have filmed it, right? Adela Larbly and Bilal Fallah would not have even gotten to the point where they finished principal photography and were in post-production before it got scrapped by David Zaslav and written off for taxes. There's no way. It was all the other stuff that had to do with it. Clearly, the directors and everybody else in the studio were good on her script in that regard. So she was likely going to be 4-0 with respect to her Hell site ratings in that regard, John. But, we won't know until we actually see it and it actually gets reviewed. Who knows if and when that will ever happen. But he says, and also, and here's my sticking point, and also, has it even been officially confirmed this is happening? People are going to look at the Hollywood Reporter's thing from Boris Kitt the other day, and they're going to say, yes, it's official. I've heard nothing from James Gunn whatsoever about this, and I'm paying attention because he posted earlier today on Threads, happy birthday crypto, and you'll see him again in Supergirl, and I'm waiting for somebody to ask him because I know people have been asking him to confirm that news with respect to Christina Hodson writing Brave and the Bold. Because the Hollywood Reporter article from Boris Kitt states that they reached out to DC Studios for comment and that they were unavailable. Well, why? If it's official, if it's the truth, why is DC Studios unavailable for comment? Why are they not saying anything? That's my question. That's what I want to know. So as much as I rely, as much as I think Boris Kitt is on the up and up with respect to what he puts out, I want official confirmation. I want James Gunn to confirm this because this started with Jeff Snyder, and his Chattanooga FBI nonsense in the first place. So I need James Gunn to officially confirm the Christina Hodson story, and that is my stance on it. People can agree or disagree on that, but Hollywood Reporter has gotten shit wrong before that Gunn has fixed, has corrected them on in the past. So yeah, castings that, rumors that were printed as fact and did not happen in that regard. That has happened with how the trades do not always get everything right. So this is one of those cases where I definitely need James Gunn to confirm, and I'm not in any hurry for him to confirm it because we're still a good couple years away from the Brave and the Bold. We got Supergirl coming out this year. We got Lanterns. We got Clayface. And then we got Man of Tomorrow next year and the Batman Part 2 next year. I am not in any hurry to confirm who the writer of Brave and Bold is because we're a ways away from that. We got way more to look forward to officially before we even get to that. So that's my stance on that. And people being pissy about it, yeah, that's short memories. And that's people that are just, feeling whatever kind of way. People that just want to complain for the sake of complaining. Because, yeah, I haven't seen Bumblebee. It's on the list. I've heard good things. I heard people say it was really good. I own Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. I saw it twice in theaters. I own The Flash. And definitely, I guess I don't want to say I'm an apologist for that movie because you're right. The critics did like it. A lot of people did like that film. It just did not make any money because the popularity and the marketing wasn't there in that regard. And it was, in the middle of a sea of 8 comic book films theatrically that people did not have enough money to go see, all of in 2023 in that regard. So, yeah, no reason. I mean, if it turns out to be true and Christina Hodson is, in fact, like if Gunn confirms that and she is, in fact, writing the script for Brave and the Bold, and he's not above confirming screenwriters, he's done it before. So the second that he confirms that she's writing it, I'll be like, all right, let's talk about it. Here we go. And, I'll say, well, what reason I'll bring up everything that you just brought up, John. What reason does anybody have to be upset about this? I guess if you hated all 3 of those movies, if you hated Bumblebee, if you hated Birds of Prey, if you hated The Flash, I guess that's your business. But again, your choice. It's all subjective, right? Tell Linkara that. Have him stick that up his pike and smoke it. Whatever. So, continuing, he says, also, I wanted to send my support to Wally U. Kindred spirits, my man. Even when I'm having a fun time with friends, my family, and my girlfriend, and especially when I'm alone, I lament hard. When I'm alone, I am lost in an endless cycle of depression in which no therapy, medication, or reassurance can 100% get me out of. And he sent a YouTube link for a song. What song is this? This is not coming up. Why is it not coming up properly? Hold on a second. So I don't know if you sent me the right link, John, because the link that you sent me was for an iPhone phone notifications here. Let me go back and check, see if he sent no, he didn't. He didn't send. Sometimes when he sends the wrong link or needs a correction, he'll send another email correcting it. That is not the case. This is like an iPhone notification. It's like lullaby and good night. He said, anytime I hear this song, I break down in tears because this is what Laura had to go off on her phone when it was time to go to bed, and it was played almost every night. Oh, okay. And we lived together for years, so that causes me PTSD levels of lamenting. I have to find a place to hide from Tammy and her family. I didn't want them to see me sobbing. Well, I mean, you have your notifications turned to something different, right? Like I certainly hope so, because there's no reason that you should force yourself to listen to that. Because yeah, I hear you. I completely understand that. Then John is responding to Wally U in our last flight chat email or last flight chat episode. In case people didn't know, he was talking about how he wasn't trying to be rude, but he wasn't quite feeling the energy at Christmas. Wasn't quite feeling it mentally, and wasn't as enthused with the family at Christmas. And seasonal depression, I was saying before, most certainly is a thing, and definitely nothing to ignore in that regard. So John is relaying his own relatable situation here. He says, anytime I pass taco trucks, I'm reminded of her. Anytime I see a post about a sexual innuendo joke, I'm reminded of her, his ex, Laura. In one sense, Tammy is the best partner for me, he says, as she's the only girlfriend I've had since 2010 rather, that has not been confrontational with me about anything. In another sense, he says, I've never been with anyone as long as Laura, so it's like quantum leaping into another life, but it is a good life. I think Tam is a better match. They were both great at being loving towards me. Sometimes I didn't think I deserved it, but I appreciated it. I wish Laura and I could have stayed in touch, but unfortunately life doesn't always work out that way. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Hawaii, he says, to get myself out of that funk, do some soul searching. Maybe going on a solo trip might do you some good, Wally. It's helped me not think about the past significantly when compared to when I was in the continental states. Intriguing. He says other things that are therapeutic for me as to not get sad. building up my Dungeons and Dragons style pro wrestling roleplay, spending time with friends and loved ones like my dad, friends, my Tammy, who's become my best friend, video games, writing questions for the show, thank you, and YouTube. He says, I saw some posts on different social media accounts asking what Beatles song you can listen to and not get sick of it. You got the usual suspects, Hey Jude, Yellow Submarine, Something, Here Comes the Sun, In My Life, I Am the Walrus. But for me, I find listening to Nowhere Man brings out all sorts of emotions in me. Sometimes I think I'm the nowhere man, stuck in my nowhere land, making all my nowhere plans for nobody. I do think all of us at one point were a nowhere person. Maybe the grass isn't always greener on the side, but I believe you will find your inner peace, Wally. As Ray said, this is a safe space, and you're not alone. Absolutely, most certainly, especially now more than ever. The Flightcast is most certainly a safe space, as far as I'm concerned, for us humans, for us human beings trying to get through this thing called life. That's for damn sure. I saw a video earlier today on TikTok. This gamer who streams on TikTok and streams on like Twitch and whatnot, and was, basically, imploring people who said, those of you who make fun of people who game, you have to understand that there are people that are literally still on this earth, literally still here because of streams and because of gaming. And he's right, because for a lot of people, even that can be all they have, to have that outlet, to have that safe space, if you will. And there are tons of people out there providing safe spaces in any way that they can. And I hope that I can do the same here, and that I have been doing the same here for any of you, for anyone that wishes to come here and, speak their mind and be honest about, what they're feeling and where they're at in life, without question. We're here to talk about movies, TV, and other sort of media, but, all of that impacts our life as well, right? It's all part of the human experience that we all share in this regard. So, yeah, thank you for that sentiment very much, John. He included some gifts from the anime Yu-Gi-Oh!, an anime that I've heard of and have not seen. He says, from the anime Yu-Gi-Oh!, Anzu T makes a symbol on her friend's hands, Yugi, Joey, Janichi, Tristan, Honda. The symbol was made with a black Sharpie, but it was meant to symbolize not to forget who their real friends are, and that they will support each other with solidarity and determination in getting through the dark times. The heart of the cards Yugi drew was the faith he had in his friends. I would suggest watching the anime to you, Ray, but I know you got a mountain of filing cabinets of consumer media to get to, so I won't bother. Peace. Yeah, I'm turning to the right and just looking at all the Studio Ghibli stuff that I have, plus other anime from other directors that I also blind bought. And yeah, that's just anime. Never mind all the other stuff that I have to watch and read. Yep, too much shit to watch and read. But that was it for John's second big email. I think that was the second big email that he sent. Flight Chat breaking news, or is it the whole Christina Hodson thing? And also some thoughts for Wally and whatnot. So here is his third email, which is a little bit longer. Actually, not too long, truthfully. This, because part of this was also his overall final thoughts on the Hawaii trip. But before that, the title of this email was titled Flight Chat, Fire Mario Brothers, Lobo, and Nominees. Oh my. And he sent the gif of lions and tigers and bears, oh my, from The Wizard of Oz with Judy Garland. And he said, yeah, I'm parodying this, LOL. So here are my thoughts on some of the stuff I saw as soon as I got back from my trip. Fire power up Mario and Luigi. He says, just seeing that image alone makes me want to break my own record viewings for 6 times for Batman v Superman. Interestingly enough, if the Super Mario Galaxy movie can make over $181 million in its first 4 days release, it will surpass BVS opening weekend record. A lot of us wanted to see more of the brothers with power up. Mario got 4 and Luigi only got 1, but only for which he shared with his brother. I can only imagine what other power-ups this film has in store. I'm sure it's not going to be a direct adaptation of the Galaxy the Galaxy games, rather, because if it was, well, the fire powers only last about less than a minute. Same with Ice and Star, although it would be pretty funny that they discover that they only last about a minute in space. Okay, timeout. Did I miss another clip from Super Mario Galaxy the movie? Hold on a second. Okay, so 2 days ago, a Screen Rant article, this is from Abigail Stevens. It says, Mario and Luigi get iconic power-up in new Super Mario Galaxy movie image after 2023 movie snubbed them. It says, Nintendo reveals an exciting first look at the Super Mario Bros. Getting an iconic power-up in their upcoming movie, one which was disappointingly left out of its predecessor. The Super Mario Galaxy movie is slated for release in the spring, starring Chris Pratt and Charlie Day as Mario and Luigi. Yada, yada, yada. Yep, how much money it made. And there's a Nintendo Direct presentation for the movie scheduled for Sunday. I guess it was today, 6 a.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. Eastern. Currently, via the Nintendo of America YouTube channel, the thumbnail for the countdown to the exclusive look at the Super Mario Galaxy movie is an image of Mario and Luigi wielding fireballs, a big reveal after Fire Mario didn't feature in the last movie. And so there's the image, and yeah, they are in full fire garb. They've even got the white hats. Yeah. Okay. The fire flower, which turns a given character into their form that has fire powers, is even one of the power-ups that is used in the Super Mario Brothers movie, but Mario himself does not get the chance to become Fire Mario. Luigi also never gets to use the fire flower in this installment, though Peach and Donkey Kong, Seth Rogen, both do. Okay. You know what's funny is that never occurred to me that they never used the fire flower power in the first movie. So yeah, it didn't bother me. We're gonna see it in this one. All right, great, awesome, glad to see that. But I had not seen this image, was not aware of that. But yeah, obviously, add more of their abilities, add more of what they can do. To me, they did more than enough. I was just happy that they did as much as they did in the first movie, because that's all I've wanted for years was, like I've said many times, a CGI Mario Brothers movie where they actually perform the powers and abilities that they have in the actual damn games. And the first movie had all of that. So, all right, we're adding firepower into this second one. Great. Awesome. Can't wait to see what else they've got. I'm with you on that one. As far as, can only imagine what other powers the film has in store. Yeah, fantastic, for sure. No doubt about it. All right. So, this next one, haven't talked about this yet. I'm going to talk about this on the FLITE Cast later on this evening. But he says, Lobo. Other than the eyes not being red enough, Momoa looks sick as Lobo. I think if this movie were to make more money than Superman, he would be a big reason for it. So about the red eyes. I think that perhaps that might be in the same category as the white eyes for Batman. Not that you can't make his eyes red, but I think if you make them redder, I don't know that looks right. I don't think that looks quite as right. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. For all we know, it maybe didn't look as red in that teaser, and maybe will look more red as the movie goes on, truthfully. But yeah, they nailed the look. There's no way you could mistake him as anything else or as anybody else. I mean, if there is, then you're just kind of being obtuse about it. No, we all expected him to look badass as Lobo, and he does. There's no question. So I'm with you on that one, John. He says, congratulations on Sinners nominations, well deserved. I'm with you, Ray. F the Razzies. They went from just as bad as Rotten Tomatoes to being worse than Rotten Tomatoes. That's quite an accomplishment. Yeah. Yeah, and maybe they always were worse than Rotten Tomatoes, because at least Rotten Tomatoes has always given you the opportunity, even though it's not a true meritocracy, even though it really is not very scientific whatsoever, despite the fact that it purports to be, at least there's an opportunity for a movie to be voted good or bad, or to be considered good or bad with reviews, right? It's arbitrarily determined, but the possibility is still there. The Razzies are just to celebrate what they subjectively believe is the worst of the worst. And yeah, the Razzies are like the bane of humanity, seriously. Humanity would be better off if the Razzies did not exist. And the problem, of course, is you have idiots like Linkara, and yes, I'm going to call him an idiot based on the previous stuff you were talking about, John. You have idiots like Linkara who think that the Razzies are necessary, because otherwise, how will we save people from watching bad movies? It's such arrogant, elitist bullshit. And that's all the Razzies are. And yeah, F them. I bet Linkara is a huge supporter of the Razzies. That's just my guess. And yeah, not interested. Not interested at all. Screw all that. So whatever. It is what it is. Not paying attention. Whatever they have nominated doesn't matter. So then the last email that John sent was another AI guessing what Robin will look like in the DCU. And again, he did this with Batman in the last FLITE Chat. And again, I don't have any issues with any of these designs. I mean, definitely, BVS inspired again with respect to the costumes. He's got the hood, right? So wouldn't this be like Tim Drake Red Robin? At least from what I remember, what I've read of Tim Drake Red Robin, which was in Detective Comics Rebirth, he wore this hood, right? And also in the Arkham games, he had that hood, right? Wasn't that his Robin that had that? My favorite Robin, of course, is Dick Grayson. So whether we see Dick Grayson or not in the DCU, great question. We may not, truthfully, depending on where we're at. Yeah, well, no, we certainly Dick Grayson probably at this point is Nightwing, right? Now that I think about it, if they're sticking to the Damian Wayne scenario, right? And I guess that's what this is. Like, but did Damian have a hood? Did Damian have a hood? I don't remember Damian having a hood in that regard. At least I don't remember seeing him with a hood. Maybe he did in Teen Titans or some of the other stuff that I've read with him. I don't quite remember that because he was in Teen Titans Rebirth as well, if I remember correctly, and also Super Sons and Nightwing. Also, he was in the Nightwing book for a bit. I don't remember him having a hood. Maybe he did, and I'm not remembering well enough, and I need to reread that. But yeah, I don't have any issues with either of these. There's a yellow one, there's a red one. If I had to pick between the two, I'd say probably the red one. Although the yellow one looks fine. The yellow one kind of has a little bit of the signal, like the signal from that character from DC Rebirth. In fact, I forgot what his name is. Right, that's the right character, isn't it? The Signal DC comic Duke Thomas. Yes, I'm right. Yeah, for some reason the yellow highlights to me remind. I mean, obviously his costume looks very different, but the yellow and black reminds me of that. Truthfully, Duke Thomas's character in that regard. So, but either way, I mean, look, if this is what Robin looks like in the DCU, just like if it got Batman right, which I doubt it got either of them right, but if those were the designs that they went with, I'd be perfectly fine with either one of them. I think they're just fine, perfectly. So, thank you for that, John. Thank you as always for the feedback. Always greatly appreciated. Glad that your Hawaii trip went pretty well and was an 8 out of 10. Glad that you enjoyed yourself for the most part. And yeah, looking forward to more of your feedback in the not too distant future, good sir. Yeah, not really in any hurry to whatsoever pay any attention to people like Linkara. Sorry, don't mean to be a Richard about that, but yeah, I'm not interested. Not interested at all. But thank you for the consideration. I suppose I could say, good sir. So speaking of Waliyu Mustafa, who John mentioned earlier in his email, let's hear from our resident Superman superfan this week. His email, oh, I love this title, hashtag Oscar So Black. Oh, yes. Can't wait to talk about this. He says, hey, Ray, thank you for your well wishes for both Micah and Estelle after their chickenpox breakout. Estelle has now recovered and was back at nursery this week. The spots are still visible on her skin due to the amount that she had, but she is at least back to her normal self. Good. Good to hear. Glad the kids got through their bout of chickenpox, and now they'll never have to worry about it ever again. That's awesome. Now let's get right into it, he says. The Oscar nominations are out, and amazingly, Sinners has not only been nominated for the big categories, Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Leading Actor, Best Supporting Actor, and Best Supporting Actress, but it has broken the record as the most nominated movie ever in the history of the Academy Awards with no less than 16 nominations. Incredible and fully deserved. Of course, it remains to be seen if the movie does win in those big categories, or if we'll see it win in the likes of Best Ensemble Cast, Hair and Makeup, Costume, Music, etc. Either way, this is brilliant, he says. And you would think it means Hollywood is heading in the right direction in terms of diversity, but we know better than that. The reaction to this has been amazing from those of us in the black-brown community and those in support of those communities. As for those who are hating, y'all clan, I'm going to leave that one there. Yeah, I've been seeing that a whole lot, and of course lately I've been seeing people change that to y'all ice, because yeah, that's very appropriate these days as well. I will say this, Wally, and I'm going to talk more about this, on FlightCast. This is one of those weird ones, right? Because this came out on what, like a Wednesday or Thursday. It was like in the middle of the week. And this is one of those things where it's like, okay, if something like this happens, this is where I should have like a more like rotating schedule, like with respect to when things happen. Remember, there was that one show, Flight Alert, where like if it was big news, I'd pop up with something there. And I need to figure out what I'm going to do, right? Instead of just waiting a whole week to talk about it on the main show and whatnot. But as far as my thoughts with respect to, Hollywood moving in the right direction, somebody pointed out, I don't know if this is the case or not. In fact, before I say this, let me check this. Let me Google this real quick. Okay, I found somewhat confirmation of this. This is an article that came out. NBC News posted this. This was November, a couple months ago. Academy nudges voters to actually watch all the Oscar contenders this year. NBC News obtained a copy of the email the Academy sent members that provided guidance on what steps they need to take ahead of the final voting deadline on March 5th. Oscar voters are getting some extra homework this award season. This is from Rebecca Keegan. It says an email obtained by NBC News shows how Academy Motion Picture Arts and Sciences members must confirm that they have watched all the movies nominated in each category in order to be allowed to vote. The email, which has not previously been made public, provided guidance on what steps the more than 10,000 voting Academy members need to take ahead of the final Oscar ballot deadline on March 5th. The Academy has long required members who vote in certain preliminary rounds, such as those who determine the shortlist for international films, to confirm that they have watched a group of assigned movies. In April, it revised that policy to note that Academy members must watch every Oscar-nominated film in order to vote. The email appears to be the first time the organization is offering detailed information on how the new rule will be enforced. To be eligible to vote, members must watch all 5 films in each Oscar category and all 10 in the Best Picture category, the Academy said. You do not need to save movie stubs, tickets, or receipts, the Academy wrote in its October 30th email to its voting members. This is an honor system. With the new policy, films that members watch in the Academy Screening Room, ASR, a streaming service run by the Academy, will automatically be verified. For films that members watch elsewhere, such as at film festivals, private for your consideration events, or a local multiplex, they must manually mark it watched on the streaming service member website or Academy app. Keep an eye out for eligibility notifications prior to finals voting, the Academy said in its email. Members will be notified of the categories in which they still need to watch films to be eligible to vote. While largely applauding the intent of the new policy, 3 Academy members who declined to speak on the record to maintain professional relationships within the organization pointed out that it will be difficult to police. Members can start a movie on the streaming service, for instance, but that doesn't mean they're actually watching it. The Academy declined to comment. Partly the new rule's timing reflects an evolution in how Oscar voters watch the nominated films. In 2019, the Academy made its Best Picture nominees available on Academy Screening Room, and now the organization has its own data about who is and who isn't watching the nominees there. The idea behind the new rule is to curtail a phenomenon in which Academy members who are fans of certain films vote for it in every category on the ballot, regardless of whether they have seen all the other films in those categories. For example, Neon's Anora swept the award show last year, taking home wins in 5 categories, including Best Picture, Best Director for Sean Baker, and Best Actress for Mikey Madison. But it's unclear whether the people who voted for Anora multiple times watched other less buzzy contenders, such as Amazon MGM's Nickel Boys, which was nominated in the Best Picture category and Adapted Screenplay categories, or Sony Pictures Classics' I'm Still Here, which won International Feature and was nominated in Best Actress for Brazil's Fernanda Torres. The Academy also made several other changes around the Oscars, including the introduction of a new award for achievement in casting, which will be given out in 2026, and an award for achievement in stunt design, which will be handed out for the first time in 2028. All right. I read all of that because somebody suggested that Sinners getting 16 nominations coincidentally lines up with this new rule about them having to watch all the Oscar movies. And it's like, if there's any truth to that, then perhaps we are seeing more substance with these nominations. Now, look, I do not expect Sinners to win all 16. I don't. I absolutely do not. If that happens, then my goodness, wow, what a corner we may have turned in that regard. What a flashpoint event that would be. But I doubt it. I don't see. I think Michael B. Jordan's going to have a tough time because I think the age-old argument of which character do you give it to him for, Smoke or Stack, I think that's going to pop up and cancel out one of his entries. I'm not confident about Coogler at Best Director. I mean, I hope so. I would love for that to be the case. But, this also reminds me that I've got a month. I have a month to watch all these Best Picture nominees, and I'm going to do that. I'm certainly going to do that, and I'm definitely going to talk about that in FlightCast because that's my homework assignment for myself personally, to appraise all these movies. Because Sinners is at the mountaintop for me, of course. Wally, you know that. So at the mountaintop for a lot of us. But I do want to see these other films and just think about it in that regard. But with respect to the reaction to Sinners having 16 nominations, right? The people, specifically the accounts that look like, that identify as white people, that are calling it boring or saying it wasn't that special or why did it deserve 16 nominations. Yeah, I mean, I think you can ask the question, y'all Klan, right? Just to say, why are you disparaging? What is the point of disparaging? No, it's not about fairness. Like, those are the people that believe that equality already exists when it in fact doesn't, right? And has never fully existed, in the way that it's supposed to be intended. We've never had that, truthfully. Those are the people that are like, why does this movie, why does this black movie need so many nominations? What about all the other white movies? Why can't we have a fair shake? Because y'all have dominated the Oscars the entire time, and y'all dominate the makeup of the Academy, like, through and through in that regard. Like, that's literally why. But it just it is what it is. I'm not getting my hopes up. I am very happy that it got 16 nominations. I'll talk a little bit more about that in Flightcast. But yeah, definitely a great accomplishment for the cast and crew of Sinners in that regard. He says, Wally, says, did you see the trailer for Masters of the Universe? I was grinning throughout it. I cannot wait for the movie. I mean, Idris Elba as Man-at-Arms, Alison Brie as Evil Lynn. June 6th cannot come quickly enough. As for the idiots who were complaining about the pronouns shown in the trailer, do you know what pronouns are? You lot need help. Seriously, yeah, this is another one that I'm going to talk about in Flightcast. So this is weird. We're talking about stuff that I haven't talked about yet. But yeah, no, I will share my thoughts. I will reveal my thoughts with respect to Masters of the Universe trailer. Wally, you liked it. Cool. Awesome. He says, speaking of trailers, the new Star Wars Maul trailer looks incredible. Cannot wait for that to be released on Disney Plus. The lightsaber scenes alone look intense. Then there's Invincible Season 4. Again, looking forward to that. Invincible Season 4. Oh, didn't know about that one. All right. Let's write that down on the list here. Too much shit to watch. Okay, moving on. Did you also see the newly released clip for Supergirl, he says? We got a better look at Jason Momoa's Lobo, and it's clear he thoroughly enjoyed playing this character. Dude really did pop out of the comic books. I look forward to seeing and really enjoying his portrayal. Oh, his energy's unmatched. He's been excited about this for years, and I can't wait to see him cut loose. It's going to be fun. It is. I firmly believe it's going to be a whole lot of fun watching him play Lobo, without question. Firmly believe that. And then he says, one last thing. Did Wonder Man get pushed back, or did we get the release date wrong? I thought it would have been out today, but I see it states January 28th instead. Either way, I have seen positive reviews for it, and that's great. But as always, just wish Marvel had marketed it better. Hey ho. I look forward to your reviews of Star Trek Fleet Academy, by the way. Yes, Starfleet Academy. Yes, indeed. Definitely got to get on that as well. And that'll do it for me. He says, really short one this week. You and Shonda enjoy the weekend. Stay warm over there. Thank you. Wally, you, Mustafa. Yeah, we're going to try. We're getting buried with snow right now. This is not going to be a fun start to the week whatsoever. The Wonder Man date uh, was the 27th. I forget. I think I mixed it up as well. But like a week or so ago, got recorrected. It is the 27th. So yeah, it's starting on Tuesday for us here. And it's a binge release. So yeah, hopefully the plan is between now and then to definitely get completely caught up on Starfleet Academy before that show starts, before that show is released, and then binge watch through that as much as possible, and then figure out exactly what the hell I'm going to do as far as a release schedule. I mean, all this stuff is just topsy turvy, and just in trying to do all of this and in trying to podcast about all of this, it's tough. Like it is. I was talking with a coworker about this at work, trying to put things into perspective, and it really did. Like when I was telling them everything that I was doing, they were like, "That's a lot," and I was like, "Yeah." Now that I think about it, it is quite a bit that I am trying to pull off here, but I'm going to do what I can. I really am. I'm really going to try and do what I can in that regard. But Starfleet Academy and Wonder Man are my TV priorities at this point in time for sure. And Wonder Man, that's going to be a binge one. So, all those episodes out at once. So that might be one, to try and get through, up to like I'm not sure like what date or whatnot. I'll try and figure that out. And certainly with Starfleet Academy as well. But as always, thank you for the feedback, Wally. You greatly appreciate it for sure. Looking forward to more. You stay warm over there as well. I don't know how winters are over in England, but hopefully not quite as arctic and as snow-filled as it is over here. My goodness. So stay safe, good sir. My best to the family and all as well. Glad everybody's on the mend. And now let's check in with Alex De Silva. His email this week is titled Flight Chat 32 Conformity Gate. Oh, I know what that is. Interesting. He says, hey Ray, so despite all odds, the Patriots have made it to the AFC Championship game. Literally one more win, and we're in the Super Bowl. Nobody could have predicted this based on their performance last season. I don't want to take any game for granted, but the Pats need to capitalize on the fact that the Broncos will be playing without their head quarterback. I'll be watching the AFC Championship game with great anticipation while the country is wrecked by the upcoming Arctic blast. Hopefully this time next week I'll be looking forward to a New England Super Bowl appearance. But even if that's not the case, it's still been an amazing season, fun season, and I'm grateful for witnessing the birth of the Drake May era. All right, so in real time, as of me recording this, as of right now, it is Denver who leads the AFC title game 7-0 with about 2:58 left in the second quarter. Who has the ball? Denver has the ball on their own 33. So if I look at the box score, Drake May has not done much of anything whatsoever. He's been sacked 3 times already. My goodness. Okay, that Denver defense, man. That Denver defense is something else. And you're not playing in New England. You're playing in Denver. So mile high, the altitude and all that. Doesn't look like there's many turnovers. At least I haven't seen any. I'm not seeing that there are any turnovers here, like fumbles or no interceptions or whatnot. So it really looks like it has just been a defensive battle at this point. But yeah, Jared Stidham is the starting quarterback for Denver because Bo Nix tore up his ankle, like broke his ankle, like on the second to last play of the game last week against Buffalo, which is crazy. Horrible turn of luck. But he has a touchdown pass so far, 8 of 14, 84 yards, touchdown pass. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I tend to agree with you. Take advantage of it, but by the same token, you've got a rookie quarterback on your side, in Drake May, and this is a young team. They are ahead of schedule, I would say. I would agree in that regard. So we'll just have to see exactly how it goes. This might be a learning experience for Drake May and company with Mike Vrabel at the helm of this team going forward. We'll see. But hey, the Pats are back in contention. They are a contending team again. That's a big takeaway from all this, truthfully. He says, so you know how people freaked out and whined about the Stranger Things ending? Have you heard of Conformity Gate? Yes, I have. He says, without getting into specific story details, this was apparently a crazy fan theory where people were believing that the series finale was actually a fake out and that a secret ninth episode was going to drop on a Netflix a week after the actual finale. Pure lunacy, if you ask me. It's crazy the lengths people will go to instead of just accepting that they weren't happy with the finale of the series. Instead of just accepting they don't like it and moving on, they create these crazy theories and hold on to this wild hope that things will somehow turn out the way they want them to. Yeah, absolute insanity, truthfully. And just lack of a coping mechanism. I mean, how do you even contort yourself to believe something like what Conformity Gate is? It kind of reminded me a little, the reaction to this has kind of reminded me a little bit of the reaction many years ago to Mass Effect 3. And I know it's a video game. I know that it's a different, medium in that regard, but I remember people hated that ending. There were a number of things about Mass Effect 3 that they didn't care for. And I remember I didn't fully beat Mass Effect 3 when it first released. I only beat it like some years ago, a couple years ago when the Legendary Edition came out. And, the galactic readiness and the fact that it was forcing us to play multiplayer, that was what I really didn't care for a whole lot about the game. But they changed that. They fixed it and changed it to war assets and whatnot. And I'm glad they did. They took out that multiplayer component because I'm not a multiplayer type of player whatsoever with respect to that. But there were multiple endings, and there was like, everybody was trying to like, okay, here's what you do to get the good ending, right? But that was real. There was at least something substantial behind that. Like, yes, you could get this ending. Yes, you could get that ending with respect to the end of Mass Effect 3. But seeing people twist themselves into knots because they didn't like how a thing ended, and they wrap so much of their emotions and their thought processes and their feelings into how a thing ends. And it's like, guys, seriously, it's not that serious. It's not that heavy of a thing. Get a grip. And just creating a conspiracy theory surrounding like, oh, they're faking us out. There's no way an ended like this. That is the height of like mental health issues. Seriously, if you really believe that, if you really like contorted yourself into believing that, you got issues. You definitely have some unresolved trauma that you need to be dealing with, and you need to contact BetterHelp or somebody. Whatever resources you have, you need to talk to somebody. You do, because if that's how delusional you're going to be, if that's how much you're going to separate yourself from reality with respect to this, then man, that's scary. That is. It's legitimately scary in that regard. And I those people, my goodness, I don't know. I'm really not sure what else to say about it. It is insane. And when I do finally watch Stranger Things, Alex, and I do finally get to that ending, I already know. I mean, even if I was caught up with it, I would have accepted whatever ending it was. But I am looking forward personally to seeing exactly what the hell was such a big deal and why. And especially, I've got friends and coworkers and whatnot in real life that said they were very satisfied with that ending and thought the conformity gate was, again, like you said, absolute lunacy, because it is completely crazy. Just, man, people do not handle confrontation or disliking things very well, and it is kind of scary, really scary how delusional people are with respect to what they will accept and what they won't accept as far as truth is concerned. Alex says, I watched Terrifier 3 recently, which funnily enough is a Christmas movie. This one continued the expansion of the lore that really began with the second movie. In this series, it's clear that nobody is safe from a brutal slasher killing by Art the Clown, not even young children. They really don't hold back. It's as graphic as you imagine. Not even young children? Well, that further cements me never watching this series whatsoever. Also, again, another real time update because the AFC Championship game is happening as I'm recording this. Apparently, there was a sack fumble of Jared Stidham deep in Denver territory, which led to the Patriots getting the ball deep in the red zone and a Drake May touchdown run, a 6-yard touchdown run, and a confirmed good extra point, has tied the game at 7 with 2:10 to go in the first half. So it's a game. It is a game, Alex. All right. I know you're not listening to this episode right now. You're on pins and needles, and I'm sure you will definitely talk about this next week on Flight Chat. But yeah, your nerves probably going through it. That's for sure, no doubt. But continuing with the rest of his email for this week, it says, I recently bought and played through the definitive edition of the Walking Dead Telltale game. Have you ever played any Telltale games? They're basically point and click adventure games, and in the Walking Dead game, the choices you make determine the course of the story. I would describe it as a step below playing a hardcore story-based video game like Mass Effect, and a step above watching a TV drama since you're actively involved as a player and always doing something, whether that be selecting dialogue options, fighting zombies, or moving around to interact with the environment. The game tells a really strong story centered around a young girl named Clementine and all the things she has to go through as she adapts to living in the apocalypse. It was a very emotional story with a great ending, and it left me feeling very satisfied by the end of it all. The only Telltale game I have played, and I didn't play all of it, was the Back to the Future one, right? There was a Back to the Future Telltale game, if I remember correctly. I forget how old it was. I also forget what system I played it on. Let's see. I'm Googling this right now. Back to the Future Telltale. Back to the Future, the game Telltale. All right, so this was, as the wiki calls it, an episodic graphic adventure video game based on the Back to the Future franchise. Part of a licensing deal with Universal Pictures. Bob Gale, co-creator and co-writer and co-producer of the trilogy, assisted Telltale in writing the game's story. Let's see. I'm trying to remember. That's right, AJ Locascio. I knew it wasn't Michael J. Fox. I knew somebody else played Marty. But the likenesses of Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd were used to develop, Marty and Doc physically in the game. Let's see. But Lloyd, also Christopher Lloyd did voice Doc. That's right. He voiced Doc, but Locascio voiced Marty. That's right. It says the game is split up into 5 episodes, available on multiple gaming platforms. First episode released for Microsoft Windows and OS X on December 22nd, 2010. PlayStation 3 and iOS versions followed in February 2011. Episodes 2 through 5 released throughout February to June 2011. Final episode released on June 23rd. Telltale published the series as retail products for the PlayStation 3 and Wii consoles for North America. So it must have been the PS3 that I played it on. Although they did release it on PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One on October 13th, 2015. Would have been better if they had released it on October 21st, 2015, because that literally would have been the day that they would have arrived in the future in Back to the Future Part 2. Anyway, it also had the ports feature updated voice work from Thomas F. Wilson, who played Biff Tannen in the films, who recently was on Michael Rosenbaum's Inside You podcast, Inside of You. And Biff was originally voiced by Kid Beyond in the original release. Okay, fair enough. That's the only Telltale game I played. And again, I didn't play all of it. It'd be one that I would like to revisit at some point, because obviously I love Back to the Future. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But the structure of it, what you're talking about, I think you described it very well, Alex, from what I remember of the Back to the Future game, where it's not as involved actively as Mass Effect, but you are still actively involved, right? So you're watching it play out, but you're making decisions. So it is kind of like interactive television in that regard. Yes, I think that is a good way to put it. I would agree with that. So yeah, interesting. So the Walking Dead game. All right, fair enough. Telltale Games. I've heard a good amount about it from friends of mine, and like I said, I would like to revisit that Back to the Future game as well. But glad that you enjoyed the Walking Dead one. So he says, this time around, I watched 2 episodes of The Next Generation. First up was Darmok. All right, here we go. Let me begin by saying, he says, that jacket Picard wears in the episode is quite sleek. I wouldn't mind owning one of those for myself. Yes, that is the debut of Picard's casual captain's jacket. And that is a time-honored tradition of the captain basically having a casual look. Kirk has one. He does have a casual uniform look that he debuts in the original series. It's not a jacket, but it is definitely a different tunic that he wears, a more casual look that's still, he's on duty, but it's, not quite as formal and, straight-laced as the regular captain's uniform. But yeah, this jacket, and listen, he pretty much wears a jacket similar to this in Picard. I mean, it's more leather than this. This is like leather and suede, but yeah, no, this jacket's badass. Like the look that Picard has, and Darmok is the episode that it started in. This look is awesome. Yes, a lot of us love this look, and you can find that jacket. You can. I'm looking at Etsy versions of it for anywhere between $45 to $160, depending on where you get it from. So yeah, go ahead, pick up that fashion. There's some good Star Trek fashion. There is, and this is definitely an example of good Star Trek fashion. I would agree. He says another notable uniform detail is the fact that Picard wears that dark gray uniform in this episode, which is quite a departure from his usual red one. I know the different colors all have specific designations. Does the gray one mean anything specific? No, not that I'm aware of. It's just his under tunic being, what he wears underneath the captain jacket, because the red obviously is displayed in the captain jacket as far as his command structure. It is just considered casual duty attire. That's all really to designate it for in this regard. And not to be confused with other uniform changes that you may see down the road, depending on how far you go into the franchise. That's all I will say about that. But yeah, that's all it is. It's just part of his casual duty look. Speaking of uniforms, he says, being the mega fan that you are, do you own any Starfleet uniforms? I could see that being a great option for Halloween parties since it doesn't require much preparation, but you're still clearly dressed up and repping Star Trek. I don't, because they're expensive. They're not cheap. Or rather, there are cheap versions that I could get, but I don't want the cheap versions. I want the better, well-crafted versions. There was a company called Anovos that used to do specifically versions of the tunics, the shirts from the Kelvin timeline. Because the cool thing about those, at least in the first 2 movies especially, they changed it a bit for Star Trek Beyond and gave it a collar. But in the first 2 movies, what they did was the pattern, like literally there was a pattern in the fabric that was little Starfleet insignias all over the place, right? When you zoomed in, that's what made up the design. That's what made up the stitching of the shirt. It was really cool. It was really awesome. It looked great in all the colors, whether it was gold, blue, or red. And I would really love one of those. They did a special photo shoot where there were people wearing them with with jackets and like with other casual clothing, and they were treating it like sports jerseys. Like the idea of, hey, we're just rooting for Star Trek. We're just rooting for our team. Like the same way that anybody would wear a Patriots jersey or a Lions jersey to a game or out into public or whatnot. Same deal. And I like that. I do like that idea because all you do is take the jacket off and yeah, you're set for Halloween. Seriously, you are all set. You don't even need to be any of the particular characters. Like you don't need to be Spock or Kirk or her or anything like that. Like you can be just a Starfleet officer and it works great. I have not gotten that yet. I would like to. I also like the jackets. Like you mentioned, you talked about that jacket. There is a jacket, a field jacket from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan that there a couple different companies have made versions of it. I love that jacket. It is like the perfect winter jacket. That jacket would be perfect for the weather that I'm looking at outside my window right now. And I really want it because, like I said, there's some good fashion within Starfleet uniforms in Star Trek as a franchise. There really is. And I would like that. But no, I currently do not own any because, yeah, they're not cheap. At least the ones that I want are not cheap. Like I can get cheaper ones, but I don't want cheaper ones. I want ones that are as close to screen quality as as you can get without paying screen quality prices in that regard. And they're out there. They're out there. I just have to pull the trigger on one. That's all. It'll happen. He says, back to the episode, those aliens have a very convoluted form of language. Their metaphorical way of speaking is fine for communicating broad concepts and ideas, but I can't help but wonder how they talk about specific, finely grained details. Imagine me trying to type an email in that style. Well, that's the point, Alex. That's completely the point of the episode, and that's why there was such a difficulty and a stumbling block, an impossibility in conversation was without having a base in what the metaphors were, there was no way that anybody could determine what they were saying. And that was part of why it had to happen the way that it did. And Captain Dathan knew that with respect to how he was going to teach Picard their language. He had to tell the stories. He had to teach the meaning of the metaphor and have it relate to him in that regard. That's why this is such a brilliant episode of the show. It really is. He says, I appreciated how the camaraderie between Picard and the Temerian developed. The world should take the same cue. Two people from completely different backgrounds who struggle to communicate properly can still come together as allies united toward a common goal. Amen to that. Amen to that. Again, Star Trek teaches so many lessons, and this episode absolutely teaches that particular lesson without question. The way this episode ends is poetic and just very, cathartic, and something that, all of us should be able to aspire to, if it weren't for the evil and the real assholes that we have to deal with on a regular basis, unfortunately, and the monsters as well. But yeah, no, the Darmok is considered a landmark episode. It is one of the classics, featuring the late and great Paul Winfield, who of course was a veteran at that point of Star Trek. People know him obviously from Star Trek II, which I mentioned a second ago, as Captain Torella the Reliant. But he's probably most celebrated in this role as far as his Star Trek stuff. This Captain Dathan, this is the bigger one. This is like the big landmark role that he played in the franchise. Not that people don't know him from Wrath of Khan, but I think they know him better and, value the weight of his character better here as Captain Dathan because of the subject matter of the episode, because of how he and Patrick Stewart played it just very well in this entire episode, for sure. Next episode that he watched was Ensign Rowe. Doesn't have as much to say about it, but he says, I appreciated that this episode got into more of a morally gray territory and made it clear that not all Starfleet members are goody two-shoes good guys. Wait till you get to Deep Space Nine. And on that note, he says, I also liked Ensign Rowe as a character. She was a complex character who I wouldn't mind seeing more of, but I could also understand if her appearance was just a one-time standalone thing. It isn't. It's not. Rowe's on the ship. Rowe is absolutely on the ship. Get used to her. You might not see her every episode. You're going to see her a lot more in this season. You're into my favorite season, Alex. The 5th season of Star Trek The Next Generation is my favorite series, or my favorite season of the series. This is the season that I put on, on my television while I was building my Lego Enterprise D. And I actually started it at Redemption, the season 4 finale, and it got halfway through season 5 before I was done building the model. So that's what, 12 and a half hours? Yes, totally. But I love season 5. Season 5 is the season where I started watching the show, where I first got my first episode of Star Trek that I ever watched, which you're going to watch shortly. It's coming up here in a couple of episodes. Very first episode of Star Trek I ever watched is coming up here. The 5th season is phenomenal. I to this day, I still think it's the best season of the show for a number of reasons. Plot lines, story, characters, and whatnot. And Rowe definitely adds a good complexity to the cast with respect to this, and paved the way for what they do with the Bajorans and with certain other characters and the morally gray territory that you're talking about in Deep Space Nine. If you want a whole show of what you just saw in this episode, Deep Space Nine, absolutely, Deep Space Nine definitely dives further into that. And if you like Rowe, oh, you'll love Kira. You will absolutely love Kira Nerys. That's my pitch for you to watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine after you're done with TNG. Continue forward. But either way, glad that you liked it. Glad that you enjoyed it. You said next episode is called Silicon Avatar. Ooh, that's another good one. Live long and prosper, Alex. Thank you as always, Alex, for the feedback. Looking forward to your thoughts as you progress through TNG season 5 now, and we'll see what's going on. We'll talk about who won, who's in the Super Bowl or not. I'm still 7-7. They're taking forever to end the second quarter here, but we'll see. We'll see if it's the Patriots or if we're talking about better luck next year. I mean, hey, you got further than my Lions, that's for damn sure. So either way, you did have a really fun season, and you're probably going to have some more fun seasons as long as Drake May continues to progress the way that he has so far this season. But thank you as always, good sir. Looking forward to more of your feedback in the future. And finally, we close out this week's feedback with Jared Cardos. His email this week, another no subject. He says, "Hey Ray, hope you're doing well. Here are my thoughts on your latest couple of episodes. John talked about how he would like Batman to look in the DCU, and while yes, I know the ultimate answer is what Gunn and crew want him to look like, I will agree that his rebirth outfit with the black symbol, yellow outline, and purple inner cape would look fantastic. I would also offer up something akin to what we see in the Arkham games, either City or Night. In reality, I imagine it's going to end up being a mix of different iterations of his costumes and something that looks very different from Robert Pattinson's suit. Will he look that big? That's what I'm curious about. Is he going to look that big? Is he going to? Because I still feel like whoever it is, whoever the actor is, has to match up with David Corenswet's physique as Superman. I don't know that you can have Batman look larger than Superman. And somebody might go, well, wait a minute, didn't Batfleck look larger than Henry Cavill? Well, I don't know that they looked larger, or they looked larger than him, but he was stockier, but he has to be stockier. He's Batman. He's human, right? In that regard. So it's got to match up in that regard. And if you have a costume like the Arkham costume that matches up with Corenswet's size and aesthetic, then yeah, definitely. And I don't have any issues whatsoever with the Arkham look in that regard. It works. Most certainly it works, and I'm neither for nor against Yellow Oval. Just want to make that clear with respect to that. And you can get away with him not having trunks. You can absolutely get away. I mean, I understood the argument for why Batman would have, or for why Superman rather would have trunks in the DCU. I got Corenswet's argument with that. Fine, he's got it. There it is. Batman doesn't need that same argument. He just doesn't. So I feel like Batman doesn't need to play this completely classic. Like, he can go a lot sleeker in this regard. So yeah, I'm with you. The Arkham games, that's a good model. And yes, something that does look very different from Robert Pattinson's suit, but will be a mix of different iterations. I agree with you on that. He says it's funny to hear some talk about the Civil War Marvel event and the movie, because I don't know if you saw my post on it on Threads, but I've been reading through the entire event for a book club there, and it is definitely hard to decide with Tony in the movie and especially the comic. I remember back in the day, Tony's actions pissed me off so much that I didn't really get into the character until like the tens. I can't say much about the movie because I haven't seen it in a while, but I will say that for all its faults, there was some interesting stories with the tie-ins, and despite it being officially 20 years old, it feels surprisingly prescient today. This is for the comics, you're saying? Yes, definitely. Is it that old? Wow, it really is. I guess so. Yes, very, very prescient today, and for a number of reasons. My goodness, I mean, Tony is essentially the leader of ICE, the leader of superhero ICE, and it's awful and it's terrible and it's just, oh, really, really bad, really awful. Yeah, no, there's no redeeming, like there's no pulling for Tony. Like, if you're Team Tony, like I no, I don't get. I feel like if you're Team Tony for the movie, it's for selfish reasons. It's for personally selfish reasons that you're Team Tony. And then if you're Team Tony in the books, then what the hell's wrong with you? Seriously, like, do you not like freedom? Do you not like due process? My goodness, something else. Yeah, and I can say that because I've read Civil War. I've read all 97 issues, plus tie-ins. I've read all of that. So yes, I have an opinion. I can offer an opinion about both movie and comic in that regard. And yeah, being Team Tony on either, not good as far as I'm concerned. Not good. Jared says, I can't say I'm a fan of the casting I've seen of Caleb McLaughlin and Sadie Sink as Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy either. Outside of the mentioned part where Miles is Afro-Latino and Sadie is likely playing a different role, it just feels too obvious. Some of the reasons I won't say because it may spoil things for you when you eventually do get into Stranger Things. But it has a similar feel to the Bryan Cranston as Lex Luthor fan cast. Like, I'm sure they could pull this off, but in Cranston's case, did you just think that because he's bald? Either way, I don't think we'll be getting a Miles for a while, and if Gwen does show up, she'll probably go a different direction than Spider-Gwen. Yeah, that's the thing about fan casts. It's one of the biggest reasons why I don't engage in fan casts, Jared, is because they don't happen. Like, they rarely ever happen. And it's like, casting directors and writers and producers and directors and whatnot, like, they're the ones that come up with this. They're the ones that do the audition process. They're the ones that know exactly what the feel is that they need, what type of performance, what type of acting stature they need for the story that they're telling. And so that's why I ultimately trust them more than anyone else in that regard. So whatever they decide is absolutely going to be their decision at the end of the day, and I stand by it, whoever it is. But I hear you. We're probably not going to get a Miles or maybe even a Gwen for a while. I mean, they're clearly, going to give us Peter Parker for a minute here in the MCU. They've done it for 4 movies. I don't think Holland is in necessarily a hurry to hand over the suit in that regard. Is he already going to be getting now with 4 movies, a 4th movie coming up this year? Is he going to have more Spider-Man movies than either Tobey or Andrew? Yes, not combined, but Andrew only had 2. He should have had 3, and Tobey only had 3. And I say only, but Tobey, at least got a trilogy out of it in that regard, and Andrew got a duology, and now Tom Holland is about to get 4. So yeah, I don't think we're done with Peter Parker for a minute. And on top of that, Sony has they've got they control Miles Morales. They have the preference, if you will. They hold all the cards for Miles Morales. I can't think of the word, to say that they control what happens with Miles or not, because he's the focal point of the Spider-Verse films, and we still need to get that last one, that 3rd Spider-Verse film. So I think until at least after that film releases, we're not going to get a Miles Morales. We might get a mention, might be, because there was a mention, there were some, we got the mention from his uncle, the Prowler, played by Donald Glover in Spider-Man Homecoming. And then also, there was the mention, Electro talked about, I thought you were black. I'd be cool if there was, I'm paraphrasing, but something about, it'd be cool if there was a black Spider-Man out there, right? That type of thing. And so it's been hinted at. It's definitely been hinted at in the MCU. But yeah, it's probably going to be a minute before we get actual Miles Morales live action in the MCU. And whoever that actor is, and whoever the actor for Gwen is, we'll leave it up to them. Whoever it is, whether it's, Destin Daniel Cretton, John Watts, whoever it is, whatever director decides to tackle that, or hey, how about a black director? How about Nia DaCosta, right? How about that? Something that we'll see how that goes down the road. But continuing with Jared's email, he says the news of Kathleen Kennedy leaving Lucasfilm was a little surprising, in that a lot of people have been saying it was going to happen for years, but it had to happen sometime. And yes, the hate she's gotten has been way overblown. The biggest thing I can think of as critique of her tenure, he says, is that I wish they had a plan for a whole trilogy of movies for the sequel trilogy instead of kind of playing them by ear. But other than that, with stuff like The Mandalorian, The Return of Clone Wars, Skeleton Crew, and oh yeah, Rogue One and Andor, I agree that it's more likely that she'll want to go back to producing her own projects, but around the same time, I also saw people talking about a new head of Disney being announced, and I thought, what would happen if Kennedy was promoted to head of Disney? It's not going to happen, but can you imagine just how Nerd MAGA would lose their ever-hating minds? Oh, I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it. There's now a part of me that hopes that's going to happen. You're right. It's probably not going to happen, but I wish it would. And the reason it's not going to happen is not going to be because they're not going to ask her. It's probably going to be because she wants to go back to just regular producing. She no longer wishes to be in charge of a studio like that, because she's got enough money. I mean, she and her husband, Frank Marshall, again, they're part of the original Amblin crew. Those guys are set. Those guys are all set for life. Spielberg, Lucas, Kennedy, Marshall, they're all set for life. They're good. They want for nothing at this point, I would venture to guess, to be honest with you. So, yeah, she probably just wants to go back into her old job as just being strictly a producer going forward. But yeah, my goodness, that would be amazing if she were made the head of Disney. Like, if she were in charge of the entire thing, oh, that'd be great. That'd be so great. I would love it. I would love it. I would love it. But no, not quite. He says, I also saw that tweet by Stephen Miller about Starfleet Academy, which is not a sentence I was ready to type. Yeah, I hear you. I also saw that William Shatner replied to it, and I get the impression that he was subtly and passive-aggressively telling him to piss off with his opinions about Star Trek, but it looks like Miller didn't understand and thought he agreed. Here it is in case you haven't seen it. I have seen it. And for people who didn't know or who aren't aware of this, yeah, Stephen Miller, the absolute waste of space that he is, horrible, monstrous individual. He, was talking about, he was commenting on somebody else complaining about the wokeness of Starfleet Academy, because Star Trek, even though it's been woke literally since September 8th, 1966, these nerd MAGA assholes just, they can't wrap their head around females women in charge, and oh no, they're not all straight. What are we gonna do? And so Stephen Miller, that's when he decided to open his stupid ass mouth and talk about how William Shatner should be put in charge of the franchise again. And Shatner's response that yes, I'm seeing here Jared Miller did repost it, but Shatner said, I am so on the same page with you at Stephen M. The fact that they have not cured hyperopia by the 32nd century is an abysmal oversight on the writers. Also, Paramount Plus needs to up the budget because I'm sure that a well-oiled organization like Starfleet in the distant future could afford more than one pair of glasses for at least this hyperopic bridge crew. Do they pass the glasses around while piloting the ship? A roll eye emoji. Shame on the line producers. That is what you meant, right? Wink and a thumbs up. I am ready to assume command of the series. Call me. With a sly smiling emoji. Now, hyperopia, because at first, like I wasn't certain what term he was using, but hyperopia, of course, is farsightedness. A common, often inherited refracted error where the eyeball is too short of the cornea lens, has too little curvature, causing light to focus behind the retina instead of on it. So yeah, he was completely making fun of Miller's original post because Miller was not talking about the glasses, obviously. Miller was talking about the diversity. And it's interesting because I know that there are people out there that probably misread what Shatner was saying as well, because he's 94 and white and male, and he has said some things that, like people have not 100% agreed with in that regard. But he's never necessarily painted himself, I think, in like a red hat corner as part of Nerd Mag or anything like that. I haven't seen that personally. So the interesting part here is that he's clearly like, taking the piss out of Miller's like whole idea. Is like, yeah, no, I did absolutely not. And he's poking fun at it. He's absolutely making fun at it in terms of like, oh, that is what you meant about the glasses, right? Yeah, no, he's not taking it seriously whatsoever. Like, and at this point in his life, especially his whole catharsis that he had on his space trip a year or so ago, where he talked about, that this how things need to be better in the world and how things are so much more vast than what they are on our planet and whatnot. Like, I think that absolutely, I take him at his word when he says that affected him. And in addition to him already being open-minded enough to be part of the franchise in the first place. Right? He's the one in Balance of Terror that tells Styles, leave any bigotry in your quarters. There's no room for it on the bridge. Right? Like that's, Shatner's always inherently had that. Has always inherently been about that. Right? You don't just associate with Leonard Nimoy, George Takei, and Nichelle Nichols for nothing in that regard. So yeah, I'm glad that he took the piss out of Stephen Miller's ridiculousness with that. And no, Miller clearly didn't get it, which just, again, shows you the intelligence quotient of the people that are running this country, unfortunately. Really sad. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, Jared. He says the notes that Netflix gives about repeating the plot several times is definitely not great. This is the Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Joe Rogan conversation I talked about before. He says not only that, but rather unnecessary when you think about it. If you're distracted by your phone or something else and miss something on a movie or show, don't you just rewind? That's one of the nice perks of watching stuff at home, after all. Yeah, I completely agree, because even if you're watching on your phone and you miss it and you got your headphones on, what are you, in a hurry? No, you can pause and rewind that shit whenever you want. So yeah, I agree. It is inherently unnecessary, given the technological capabilities of being able to start and stop and rewind and fast forward that you can do at home that you can't do in a movie theater. So yeah, thank you for pointing out, Jared, that the note is stupid in the first place and is completely unnecessary. That's a very valid point, good sir. He says, I think I'll end it here. I was going to start doing watch updates for Discovery, but I'm going to wait until next week because the first few episodes seems to be one big story without being explicitly having a part 1, 2, and so on. Thanks for reading and looking forward to your future episodes. It's really just the first 2 episodes of Discovery, Jared. The Battle of the Binary Stars, like those first 2 episodes set the stage for what the rest of the show is going to do with the Vulcan hello and whatnot, right? Like it sets the stage, and then when you get to episode 3, that's where it's like, okay, now here's our story. This is where we're going with respect to it. And yeah, so I hear you. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on Discovery, because Star Trek watch updates, I can't get enough of those. Any of you that wish to dabble in my favorite franchise on the whole wide world, that has been woke since September 8th, 1966, in its inception, I welcome it. I look forward to it and can't wait to hear your thoughts on all of it, good sir. So thank you as always for the feedback. And there you have it, another feedback session of Flight Chat in the books. Thank you so much to all of you listening. Thank you so much to all of you supporting the Flightcast. All of you open-minded, rational humans out there that, just seek to live your lives and not be closed-minded pieces of shit, supporting closed-minded pieces of shit that are, terrorizing the world that we live in. Thank you so much for listening and being rational individuals and being a good force for change in that regard. If any of you are listening to this and have anything that you want to contribute to the feedback circle about movies, TV, and other assorted media, if you have any thoughts on what we talked about here or anything else, you know where to find me on Threads and on Instagram at the Flightcast, on BLUESKY at Flightcast. You can comment on the posting for this particular episode on the Flightcast YouTube channel. There's also the Flightcast Facebook page, and of course, I can be reached by email at ray@theflightcast.com. All right, take care. Stay safe out there. Seriously, stay safe out there. Guys, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.